While we're taking a moment here to drop off our caboose, let's take a look at the cars in our consist. We have a Procore boxcar, CPAA, double door. We have a CN newsprint boxcar, a Conrail coil gondola, and a CP gondola. Let's take a look and see where those show up on the switch list. This is the switch list for the upper industrial zone. It's also called the AB zone because the tracks in this zone all start with an A or a B. The first column on the switch list is the SPIN column. The acronym SPIN, I believe, dates back to early Southern Pacific days, and I think it means Southern Pacific Industrial Number. In any case, that's what I use it for. The SPIN number is a unique identifier where one car can be spotted. So on this list we see there are 13 unique spots in this zone, and they are divided up into bands of different color and different letter groupings. So each pair of letters, the first two letters, indicate a track. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tracks in this upper industrial zone. The numerals following the letters indicate the spot number on that track. So, for example, track AB has room for 3 cars. Spot numbers ABO1, ABO2, and ABO3. The second column on the switch list is just a general identifier of the customer. Someday I'll get around to giving my customers actual names, but for now I have an indication of what type of industry it is. So you see the largest customer here is a steel transfer facility. It has 2 tracks and a total of 6 car spots. The newsprint printing house is 1 track and 3 spots. The plastics product company has 1 track and 3 spots, and the building supply company has 1 single spot. The third column gives you a bit more detail about what might be going on each of the tracks. So for example, in the steel transfer facility, the first spot up on both tracks is structural steel long. This is to indicate there are longer types of materials being handled here, and you might be more likely to see a 65-foot gondola than a 50-foot gondola or a short flat car, whereas the second and third spots are marked coils, structural steel short. So you'll see coil cars and regular gondolas and maybe flat cars on those spots. On the second steel transfer track, we see something a little bit different. We see steel products, plates, lumber, and steel products pallets. So this lets you know that there are other kinds of supplies being brought in here, lumber and pallets in boxcars rather than just gondolas and flat cars for steel loading. The newsprint house obviously is bringing in paper. The plastics product company brings in plastic pellets, of course, and occasional chemicals in tank cars. And the third spot on that track is for loading outbound products, so you'll see the empty box cars being spotted there for loading. The building supply company will be bringing in lumber, drywall, and paneling in boxcars. The fourth column is marked Current Car ID. It has a counter in it. You'll see it says 7 in this case because there are 7 cars listed here. This is a status of the industrial zone after the operating session has been completed. So if you've done your job right, at the end of the evening, this is what you should be seeing spotted on each of these tracks. The next column is simply a counter that lets us know what session we're in. So we've had 30 operating sessions so far. Our counter started at 2100. That's just a quirk of the program. The next group of columns is the cars that were released for pickup at the beginning of this operating session. The final group of columns is the list of cars that are to be placed in this operating session. So we see some familiar numbers. Conrail gondola, CR 585054, CP 341542 gondola, CN 400362, that's the newsprint boxcar, and there's that CPAA double door boxcar 208046. The switch list also provides the crew in the zone an indication of where cars are going after they've been released. So, for example, here's a car that was released at the beginning of the operating session from the steel transfer facility. It's destined to be connecting to the eastbound Conrail train. Here are a couple of newsprint boxcars that are destined to connect to the northbound Quebec and New England train. This is useful when you have a lot of cars. You can help the yardmaster at the interchange yard by blocking the cars in such a way that it reduces the number of switching moves he has to make to get the cars in the right order for the outbound trains or connections. So when the crew comes on duty, they can see at a glance which cars they're going to be pulling from customer sidings. That's their first task. Bring those down to the interchange yard. They'll see which cars they're going to be bringing back eventually toward the end of the day to spot on the customer sidings. But they'll also see that they may have cars that don't show a release or a place. These are cars that were on the customer sidings before the start of the operating session and that are staying there. They show no other action, either release or place. So we see here a DWC flat car. We see two plastics hoppers at the plastics products manufacturer that are still being unloaded. They're not released, and no new cars are destined to be placed where the cars are sitting. The switch list also includes a collection of notes. Some of them are specific to industries, some of them are general and are basically rules for operating on the railroad. For our industrial zone, there are two locations to point out, track AB03 and BB03. Cars may be placed at any available spot on the designated tracks except at the following locations. So in this case we see AB03, the spot is reserved for 60-foot boxcars. That's in the steel transfer facility where pallets would be coming in boxcars. You wouldn't place a steel coil car to be unloaded at the internal platform where pallets are being unloaded. And BB03, that's the spot reserved for large capacity empty boxcars at the plastics manufacturing facility. The doors have to be lined up with the loading doors in the building. You wouldn't put the plastic pellets car there or the chemical cars there, so that spot is reserved for the empty boxcars only. One of the other things we give our operating crews are schematics of the industrial zones that they're working in. So in the upper industrial yard here, we see the main line coming from the lower interchange yard. It comes through the area in red here, and we see all of the industries that we've talked about. Here's the steel transfer facility, 2 tracks, and here are the 6 spots, AA010203 and AB010203. Here's the newspaper printer and spots BA01, 02, and 03. The plastics products manufacturer, BB01, BB02, and BB03, and the building supply company with the single spot BC01. We also show on this diagram locations of hidden uncouplers that can help when it's hard to reach using an uncoupling stick. Here's a bird's eye view of the entire upper industrial zone. And you can see that it generally matches what we showed on the schematic here. The schematic is conveniently located on the flip side of the switch list. But for those who don't find that handy enough, we've also got an almost life-size schematic on the fascia board of the entire zone. And if you look closely enough, you'll see it even includes the spin numbers.